بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, welcome again, alhamdulillah, to our Tafseer class, and today, bismillah, we're going to be looking at the longest surah in the Quran, that is Surah Al Baqarah. Before we jump straight into the surah, there's a few things that we need to look at. One of those is the topic of Usool Tafseer, the principles of Tafseer, which we dealt with a very long time ago, if you remember. But I just want to give a quick summary, because we're going into a chapter in the Quran, Usool, which is Surah Al Baqarah. It's okay, you can leave it open. So the Usool Tafseer. Ahmed, in due course, you can bring that table in if there's a need. Yeah, if they need it. At the moment, I think they're okay. So Usool Tafseer, the principles of Tafseer. It's important to understand how we conduct Tafseer. We can't just jump into the Quran and start interpreting it through our whims or desires. Yeah, I think you might need it now. Yeah, it's okay, he's bringing it. Sorry ladies, there was a class going on, so we took the tables out. Okay, so we're talking about the Usool Tafseer, the principles of approaching Tafseer. Now, everything in any science, be it Islamic or non-Islamic, there are principles to approaching any field. The same with the Quran, being the best of books, being the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't just open it and start interpreting it through our whims and our desires, especially when we're looking at Al-Baqarah, which is very different to Juz Amma, which we looked at previously. Juz Amma, it didn't contain any ahkam, there was no rules, so it was quite straightforward. The surahs, most of them were Makki, so the theme was very common, there was something similar in all of them. But Al-Baqarah now is very different, where it consists of Aqidah. Okay, so the themes inside of Al-Baqarah, it will consist of principles of faith, Aqidah, and it also consists of stories, we'll get lots of stories. And thirdly, also law. Okay, so we have to approach this a little bit different compared to the way we approach the Juz Amma. So if you can write in your books, the date today is the 28th, Al-Baqarah, and then underneath that, principles of Tafseer. How do we approach the Quran? How do we interpret the Quran? You know, nowadays anybody picks up the Quran and they start interpreting. This is what this ayah means. This is what this ayah indicates. But how do we know if this is right or wrong? What's the criteria? So the first principle, number one, is Tafseer of the Quran by the Quran. Tafseer of the Quran by the Quran. Okay? The Quran, it explains itself. So before we start looking into any kind of interpretations, we look at the Quran itself. We need to read it thoroughly and see if it answers its own questions. We've looked at the ayah before in Surah Al-An'am, verse 103. Allah says, لا تدركه الأبصار. Allah says that the absar, the eyes, they will not see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the verse says, لا تدركه الأبصار, that the eyes will not see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this verse needs an explanation. Does that mean we will never see Allah Almighty? If we continue and looking in the Quran in Surah Al-Qiyamah, we said the ayah إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاذِرَةً, that there will be eyes, their faces will be glowing. Why? Because they'll be looking at their Lord. إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاذِرَةً, meaning that yes, people will look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and in another verse Allah says, كَلَّا إِنَّهُمْ الرَّبِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَمَحْجُوبُونَ. That the disbelievers, they will have a hijab. There will be a barrier between them and Allah Almighty. Now why is Allah telling us that the disbelievers will have a barrier between them and Allah? Because the believers will not have a barrier between them and Allah. So meaning that they will see Allah. So the first thing we do is when we're doing tafsir, is look at the Quran. It explains the Quran. Okay. If we can't find an answer by Quran, then the next thing we do is Quran with Sunnah. Very good. So step number 2 is Quran with the Sunnah. Okay. The Quran with the Sunnah. A good example of that when we looked at the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay. We looked at the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha and the last verse of Al-Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. This ayah was explained by the Prophet ﷺ. So who are the ones who have gone astray? Dallin. Okay, so firstly, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوب. Who are those who have the anger of Allah? Al-Maghdub. We discussed this in Al-Fatiha. Who got the anger of Allah? The Jews. And Dallin, those who went astray, they are the Christians. Now that's not explicit in the surah. The Prophet ﷺ explained that to us in a hadith. So we know that the second principle of tafsir, after not finding the meaning in the Quran, we look in the Sunnah. Did the Prophet ﷺ speak about the Quran, this particular ayah? So we look at the tafsir of the ayat from the Sunnah. Okay. The third step we take when we're looking at tafsir is tafsir of the Quran with athar, with the statements of the Sahabah. Okay, with the statements of the Sahabah. Now this is really, really important, because many a time you find people doing tafsir today and they overlook the Sahabah. Okay, they say they were men and we are men. They looking at the Quran, we're looking at the Quran. What's the difference? No, there is a big difference. The big difference is, number one, Allah said He is happy with them. Okay. Number two, their teacher was the Prophet ﷺ. Your teacher is not the Prophet ﷺ. So anybody who writes a tafsir today or after the time of the Sahaba, their tafsir is nowhere near to the level of the tafsir of the Sahaba. Especially if there is ijma' Sahaba, meaning that the Sahaba, they agreed. So somebody, one of the great mufassir amongst the Sahaba, he made tafsir on ayah, so this is what this ayah means, and they all agreed. If they all agreed on the meaning, we are not allowed to come with another meaning. This is very important. That if the Sahaba have agreed that this is the meaning of this verse, we cannot come with another meaning. That's it, it's done. Okay? What if the Sahaba amongst themselves, they had two meanings to a verse? Okay? Can we come with a third meaning? What do we think? No? Some say no. Okay? Here the answer is that you can come with a third meaning as long as the third meaning doesn't contradict the other two meanings. Okay? So if the third interpretation you come with, it doesn't contradict what they said, then you can come with the third meaning. Other than that, we stick to the teachings of the Sahaba. They are the best of teachers. Okay. And a good example of that is when in Surah An-Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talked about the concept of the hijab. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغْضُونَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. That Allah said, tell the believing woman to lower their gaze and guard their chastity and to only reveal from their adornment that which is normal, that which normally appears. So مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. So now what's the explanation of what normally appears? So if we look in the Quran, we can't find the answer. If we look in the Sunnah, there's nothing explicit telling us what is normally appearing. And from this, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates, he said, مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا, that which normally appears is the face and the hands. So other than that, the rest of the woman is awrah, that she has to wear the hijab and cover it. Okay, so that's an example of athar. Okay, so if we now don't find a statement from the Sahaba, then we move to the next generation, which is Tabieen. Okay, so then we look at the Tabieen. Okay, and the Tabieen, their statements again are an evidence for us. Many of the Sahaba, they left many of the verses in the Quran unexplained, or certain words, they left them unexplained. Okay, Now, some people think they left them unexplained because they didn't understand them or they were too difficult or something like along those lines. No, it's not that. It's because those things that they didn't comment on, they were obvious to them. They were so obvious that they didn't need someone to explain it. But then as time went by and generations went by and Islam expanded and people were detached from the Arabic language, then these words and these meanings, they needed new interpretations, or they needed people to explain them. Okay, so that's why we have more and more lengthier tafsir as time went by. Also, as Islam expanded, and we will see it in the Medina phase and also in other phases, a lot of the Jews and Christians, or some of the Jews and Christians, they embraced Islam. Okay, or we came in contact with Jews and Christians. So when we came in contact with them, we then became in contact with what? Yeah, their ideas, their books. So this is known as the Israeliyat. Okay, so we make a note of that as well. The Israeliyat. So the comments or the statements coming from the Torah or the Injil or the senior Jews and Christians, they started to add their commentary as well. Okay. We need another chair. Yeah, we're going to just have to one chair. The first one's broken, so go for the second one. Okay, so we do tafsir from the Sahabah, then the Tabieen, and we can take from the Israeliyat. There's no problem with that. Now, add to this, if you can, conditions when it comes to taking from the Jews and the Christians. This is very important. Conditions taking from the Israeliyat. Because many of the tafsir, they have Israeliyat. Number one, if the Israeliyat, the commentary, it agrees with the Quran or the Sunnah, we take it, no problem. Okay, we accept it. If it contradicts the Quran or the Sunnah, we reject it. And if there is information in the Torah or the Injil or from the senior Christians and Jews which is not mentioned in the Quran, we cannot confirm it and we cannot deny it. In this case, we say we accept it, we don't confirm it and we don't deny it. We say it's a possibility. Okay, it's a possibility. But we cannot use that as an evidence to prove anything. We just say it's a possibility, and that's where it stops. Okay? Alright, good. The fourth point, principle of tafsir, is doing tafsir of the Quran with the language, the Arabic language. Okay? That's why I find it amazing when somebody who has no idea of Arabic language and he says he's done the tafsir of the Quran or his tafsir of the surah. How can you possibly do that if you don't understand the Arabic language? It doesn't make any sense. So the fourth principle of doing tafsir of the Quran, you have to do it through the language, the Arabic language. Because words change in meanings. And the context or the environment can also have an effect on the meaning of words. Yeah? So an example of that, prior to Islam, the word salah was very common amongst the people. But what did it mean? What did salah mean amongst the people? Yeah, dua. Okay, it was just dua, that's what salah meant, dua. But then once Islam came, then the meaning of salah, it changed. It became the full takbir, the Fatiha, the ruku'. So the meaning of the word, it changed. Okay, so we have to keep an eye on the language and see what the language is. And then finally, and then we'll get into the surah, is tafsir of the Quran with opinion, with ra'i. This is also permissible. You can do tafsir of the Quran with your opinion, but whose opinion? Anybody's opinion? My opinion? Your opinion? No, only those who have qualified in the first four steps. Okay? Only those who are dedicated and learned in the first four steps, they can come with their opinion. Otherwise, their opinion is rejected. Okay, good. It's very important to have that principle in our minds. Otherwise, we can always be pushed left, right, and center, not knowing what is the true meaning of the Quran. Now let's go to Al Baqarah. Bismillah. A few things actually prior to looking into the tafsir of Surah Al Baqarah. We have to remember, we said this when we're looking at tafsir of the Quran. In order to really appreciate tafsir of the Quran, we've got to also appreciate the seerah. Okay, so we need to know where we are with these verses, what's happening. So Al-Baqarah, number one, is a Madani surah. Okay, is a Madani surah. The vast majority of it if all of it was revealed in Medina, but the vast majority of it was revealed early on in Medina. Okay, the last few verses of Baqarah were revealed later on, the ayahs relating to riba, interest. They were some of the last few verses to be revealed. Okay, so this is the early Madani surah. Now, why is that important? Why do we need to understand that? The history is important, number one. So if you can make a note of this, understanding the history behind Al-Baqarah. Maybe that's a good title. So we're just trying to contextualize the surah. Okay. So firstly, we said that a Madani or Makki surah is distinguished with the Hijrah. So anything after Hijrah is Madani, anything before Hijrah is Makki. Most of the verses that were revealed early in Mecca, the theme was very similar. Okay, it was about akhirah. It was about establishing iman in people's hearts, making the heart stronger. Okay. Whereas the verses of Medina are more relating to laws, more relating to establishing a society, whatever a society needs. So maybe politics, not maybe, politics, economics, social construct. Okay, all these things came down in the Medinan period. So the discussion was very different. The ahkam, the rules, if not all of them, they came down in Medina. The Makki surahs are the vast majority of the Quran. The Madani surahs are the minority of the Quran. The ayat in the Makki surahs are shorter, whereas the ayat in the Madani surahs are much longer. Okay. Also, if we look at the verses of the Makki surahs, we find that Allah begins, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He begins most of the ayat with Ya ayyuhan nas, addressing all people. O Ya ibadi, O my slaves. Whereas if you look at the Madani surahs, the theme here changes a little bit, and Allah says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Okay, now Allah is distinguishing between believers and disbelievers. So the theme also changes. Another point is that in Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ was addressing who? Who was he talking to?
Non-believers.
Non-believers, but what was the background?
Pagans.
Pagans, good. Yeah, they were pagans. There was no Jews and Christians in Mecca. He was talking to the pagans, so idol worshippers. So he was having to teach them from zero because they had no understanding of anything. So furthermore, the next point is that in these verses, in the Madani verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly now commands the believers to go out and give da'wah in strength, to not to be afraid anymore. Okay, reassuring them. He gives the commandments of jihad, which were unknown of in Mecca, giving the people, giving the Sahabah the ability to go out and defend themselves. And the final thing, which is new to the Madani surahs, is the concept of the munafiqun, hypocrites. Okay, hypocrites. Okay, so the next concept we said is the concept of the munafiqun, the hypocrites. In Mecca there was no hypocrites, there was no need for anyone to pretend to be a Muslim. Okay, whereas in Medina now there was munafiqun. Okay, initially there weren't many munafiqun because the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims who came to Medina, they were still weak, they still didn't have much. But the munafiqun really appeared at what instant? After what event did they really become apparent? Anybody know? Before that. What did you say? Yeah, before that. Yeah, Badr. Very good. Okay, brothers and sisters competing. Okay, good. So Badr is the correct answer. Why? Because after Badr they got a lot of wealth. Okay, and they got a lot of strength. So now people thought, hey, we can benefit from this movement. So they joined, pretending to be Muslims. All right, very good. Now, the Jews were known to have their holy day, okay, which is their day off or their religious day of the week? Saturday, except the Christians, Sunday, and then of course the Muslims is Friday. Okay, this was well known. Now the Jews and the Jews and the Christians in Medina, like we said, they were very learned. Okay, does anybody know the Arabic word for like a priest or a rabbi? What in the Quran? What does Allah say? Okay, Allah says al-akhbar. Okay, they are the priests, ahbar. They are the ones who learn. Now it's interesting because ahbar, it comes from the root word habar or hibr, and hibr is ink, okay, which means that they're people who used a lot of ink, meaning they used to write a lot, they used to read a lot, they used to spread their hands over the ink, meaning reading and turning pages. So they're ahbar. So they're very well learned. Now imagine a man is coming from Mecca who is claiming to be a prophet, and he's coming to Medina where we have ahbar, learned people who have spent years and years learning the texts, and they read and they write. The Prophet ﷺ was described as al-Nabi al-Ummi. And what does al-Ummi mean? He didn't read and write. He was known, and he was coming from a community that wasn't known for reading and writing. So now the ahbar, can you imagine a community of learned scholars, spent years reading and writing, they have dominance in the academia, in the people, in influencing people, and so on and so forth. Here comes this man from the desert, and he can't read and he can't write, and he's claiming to be that prophet that they're all waiting for. So you can see why they resisted. And not just that, on top of that he was Quraysh. He wasn't from Bani Israel. He didn't look like them, and they were not expecting it to be like that. So you can see the resistance, and that's one of the biggest challenges that the Prophet ﷺ he faced. Okay, when he got there. I'm going to come back to this topic in just a few moments. If you can write down the next thing, the virtues of Surah Al Baqarah. The virtues of Surah Al Baqarah. Now, there's many hadith teaching the process where the virtues of Baqarah are mentioned, and this is important, I think, for everyone to really take note of. The first one, hadith Abu Hurairah, he said, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم قبورا فإن البيت الذي تقرأ فيه سورة البقرة لا يدخل الشيطان. That the Prophet said that don't make your houses into graveyards. He said, فإن البيت, the house, الذي تقرأ فيه سورة البقرة, in the house where Surah Al Baqarah is read, okay, لا يدخل الشيطان. Shaitan cannot enter this house. Okay, if you're complaining of constantly fighting with your spouse, your children, you got problems, whatever issues are taking place in your house, there's a possibility that you're not reading Al-Baqarah. The shayateen are overpowering you, they're distracting you. So Al-Baqarah is something which will protect you. Okay, in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever recites 10 ayat from Surah Al Baqarah in the night before that person goes to sleep, then shaitan will not enter his house that night. And what are these 10 ayat?
Last one.
Yes, Ayatul Kursi and the last few verses of Al Baqarah. Okay? You will be protected. Unfortunately, many a times today, and we all fall victim, or many fall victim to this, is that the last thing people are doing before they go to sleep is they're probably on Netflix, or they're watching a movie, or they're watching some politics or something. That's the last thing they do before they go to sleep. But rather, take a few moments out and just do your adhkar, read Surah Al Baqarah, say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah a few times, or even better, make wudu, jump into bed with wudu. I know these things are difficult because we're lazy people. But if we get into the rhythm of that, then shaitan will not enter into your house, and your lives, your marriages, your household will be safe. Okay. Another hadith found in the Tirmidhi, the Prophet ﷺ, he went on an expedition, and while they're on an expedition, the Prophet ﷺ was looking for somebody to lead the people in an expedition. So the first question he asked, he says, who amongst you has memorized Surah Al Baqarah? Okay, so showing again the criteria to show who is ahead of another in his deen, in his iman, in his Islam, is those who have learnt and memorized Surah Al Baqarah. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, he gave preference to those people who had memorized Surah Al Baqarah even in expeditions. Another hadith, the Prophet in Musnad Imam Ahmed, Abdullah ibn Buraidah, he narrates the Prophet ﷺ, he said, تعلموا Surah Al Baqarah, learn Surah Al Baqarah. فَإِنَّ أَخْذَهَا بَرَكَةٌ. If you learn it, understand it, then you will have barakah in your lives. What is barakah? What does barakah mean? How can we translate barakah? Anybody? Blessings, yeah? Or in Arabic they say ziyadatul khair, meaning extra goodness in your life. Okay? So تعلموا سورة البقرة فإن أخذها barakah. You will have barakah in your lives. وتركها hasra, that if you leave it, you'll have khasara, you will be in big loss. وَلَا تَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَطَلَ, meaning a person who has baqarah inside of their heart. The batala are the sorcerers, the magicians, those who do taweez, those who want to destroy marriages, those who want to make people ill, those who tie knots and threads and want to do magic on people. That the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تستطيع البطلة, that these people will not be able to influence or affect a person who is attached to Surah Al Baqarah. Okay, and we know that this is one of the biggest issues that we have in our societies. One of the biggest issues we have in our society is that of magic and all sorts. So we should take this advice very seriously. Okay. In another hadith, the Prophet said, تعلموا سورة البقرة وآل عمران فإنهما زهروان. The Prophet said, learn Surah Al Baqarah and learn Surah Al Imran. Why? فإنهما زهروان. There are two flowers. يظلان صاحبهما يوم القيامة كأنهما غمامتان. That these two surahs will come to Yawm al-Qiyamah as a ghamama, meaning a cloud, and they will protect you. A person whose heart is attached to Surah Al Baqarah and Al Imran, the Prophet said, on the day of judgment you'll be given two clouds and they'll be following you and protecting you wherever you go. Okay, so another great encouragement for us to learn these two great surahs. Okay, very good. Now let's go back. Let's start looking into the surah now in some detail. The first thing we looked at, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We learned the tafsir of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before. But just to remind ourselves, the recitation of the Basmala, it's called Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but the noun version of it is the Basmala with the Fatha. The Basmala, we should recite it whenever we do anything in our lives. Okay, it adds barakah into any activity that we do. Number two, it rectifies our intention. Okay, that we are not doing it for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thirdly, the reason why we start with Bismillah is to seek Allah's help. Okay, anything you do, you're picking up a piece of paper, Bismillah. You're entering into a room, Bismillah. Anything you say, Bismillah, it will remind you of Allah and it will put blessing into what you're doing. Okay, so now remember what I said about the ahbar. So the Jews and the Christians, they were very well learned of the books. They could read and they could write. And they're hearing about this man who is coming unlettered. He can't read, he can't write, and is claiming to be a prophet. So they naturally started to mock and they started to make fun of these people, saying, look who you're following, someone who can't read and can't write. How does he know scripture? How does he know what has come before? How does he know the message of what is happening? Now imagine the first few verses or the first words that they hear is Alif Lam Mim. That's the first thing they hear. Now those people who understand the Arabic language would know that this was something very heavy. This was not something normal for the Arabs or the poets. Just these three letters had a very deep impact upon the learned people. So when they heard the Prophet recite these words, they said he's reading letters. So a person who's reciting letters, what does that mean? What is he doing in his time? If you're saying words and you're making mention of letters, he's learning. He's learning. He's reading and he's writing. So they start to become intrigued. This man, he said, is unlettered. Now he's telling us letters, which means that he's reading and he's writing. And if you're learning how to read and write, then you must have a teacher. You must have a teacher. So now they want to know who is this man's teacher. Okay, so they become curious. They said he's giving us these letters. They were amazed. Alif Lam Mim, and they said he must have a teacher. Who is his teacher? So they wanted to know where is he getting this information from. And as we go, as the verses come clearer and clearer, we find out that the teacher of the Prophet ﷺ is who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, very good. Okay, so we find out that the teacher of him was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those with Iman understood this, and those who didn't, they obviously they rejected. Okay. Also, these letters Alif Lam Mim, they are known as الحروف المقطعة. Okay, they are letters. There's long discussion on what is the meaning of these huruf al-muqatta', because many surahs in the Quran begin with different letters, and many people have tried to say that they are names of the surahs, or these letters represent the main themes inside surahs, or various other interpretations. But the majority of the scholars have come to an agreement that the huruf al-muqatta', we don't know their meaning, but they do have a meaning, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal those meaning to us in the next life. Okay, but they do have a meaning. If anybody ever says inside the Quran you have words or letters that don't have any meaning, you can stop them. Say, yes, they do have meaning. We just don't comprehend it. Okay, the Alif Lam Mim has a deep meaning, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal to us the meaning of that in the hereafter. Okay, so Huruf al-Muqatta'a. Okay, so let's go to Alif Lam Mim. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Okay, so firstly, ذَلِكَ, that, al-kitab, that book. Okay, and this is talking about none other than the Holy Quran. And this Quran, it is al-Haqq al-Mubin, it is the rightful book. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech. And then Allah says, La rayba fi hudan lil muttaqin. The la is a negation, meaning no. And the rayb means doubt. There is no doubt in it. Okay? La rayba fi, there is no doubt in it. Showing us that here's a principle that we can take in the nafi al-maqsood bihi al-madh. That if we say that this book has no doubt in it, what's the understood meaning? What's the opposite of doubt? Certainty. That's what Allah is showing you. By saying that there is no doubt in it, we take the meaning of the fact that this book is full of certainty. Okay? So Allah comes and tells us that the direct speech, what we say is the mantuq, that there is no doubt in it. The mafhum, what we understand, is that therefore it's a book of certainty. Okay? La rayba fi.
It also suggests that the other books may have doubt.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, very good point. That it also implies or suggests that the other books, they do have a rayb, that they do have doubt inside them. Okay. Then if we continue, hudan lil muttaqin, that it's a guidance or a source of guidance lil muttaqin, for the those of taqwa. Okay. Here's a question. See who can answer this. Hudan means guidance, right? Lil muttaqin is for the people of taqwa. Now, isn't that a circular argument? That guidance is for those who have taqwa, but they've already got taqwa, so they've already got guidance. So why is the guidance for them for those of taqwa? Do you understand the question?
Because you can be misguided.
Because you could be misguided. Yeah, that's good.
We all keep them on that path.
Yeah, keep them on that path. That's one answer. Yeah.
We all initially have taqwa.
Yeah, we all initially have taqwa. Very good. So it's a if we bring all the answers together, there's two answers to it. Number one is the fact that the end result is taqwa. Okay, so if you have guidance, you will become muttaqi. Okay, and then if you become muttaqi, you have guidance. Yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that taqwa, you may not have taqwa in its complete form, but even if you have just a little bit of awareness of Allah, Allah says even if you have a little bit, then the guidance will come into your heart and you will become muttaqi. Yeah, showing that if the beginning part is clean and is close to Allah, then when you do seek that guidance, you will become a muttaqi. Okay, so it's not a circular argument. Okay, and the second meaning is what someone said, is that al-huda here means thabat wa dawam, meaning that you will remain upon guidance. Hudan lil muttaqin, because you could be a muttaqi one time in your life, and another time in your life you could be the opposite. It's very possible. Okay. Yeah. Then الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة. الذين, those, يؤمنون, those who believe, بالغيب, in the unseen. Those who believe in the unseen. And they establish the prayers. Let's look at the first part. يؤمنون بالغيب. Now, iman has two meanings. Number one, the linguistic meaning, which means tasdeeq, which means just to accept something. Okay? And the shar'i meaning, the detailed Islamic meaning, is that it's not just to accept, but also to act upon it. Okay? Like we said before, you can't claim to believe and then do no actions from the actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to do. Okay? So the mainstream opinion is the fact that iman includes actions. No actions, no iman. Okay? It's not just a declaration of the tongue. There has to be actions with it. The guidance the huda we spoke about a few minutes ago, two types of guidance. We said before previously that there is hidayah al-tawfiq or hidayah al-irshad. Tawfiq meaning the guidance, it comes from Allah, which enters into the heart. The hidayah of irshad is when a person takes a person somewhere. So if somebody asks you which way is Lidl, so you say, okay, leave this door, take a right, crossing line, to give them irshad, to give them the way to Lidl. But tawfiq is putting that light, that nur inside the hearts. Okay, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said to the Prophet sallallahu innaka la tahdi man ahbabt, when he was making dua for his uncle. And we know his uncle didn't die upon Iman. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded the Prophet sallallahu innaka la tahdi, that verily you cannot guide man ahbabt, those who you love. And this hidayah is talking about the tawfiq, that nur that enters into the heart. Only Allah can do that. Even if you're the best sheikh, you're the most pious father, most pious mother, if something's not going to happen in a child or a brother or a sister, that's Allah's plan. Okay, there's something there. But also the irshad, which is our job as people, is the example I gave of taking someone to Lidl or taking someone to somewhere, teaching them the right path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ, that verily you are the one who can guide to. Okay, you can guide to the Surat al-Mustaqim. It's okay. You can guide to the Surat al-Mustaqim. That only you have the ability to guide to the Mustaqim. So we should all follow in that footsteps. That the Prophet ﷺ had the hidayah of irshad. So we give the irshad. Okay, let us continue. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, they are the ones, we're describing the muttaqin, that this book is a source of guidance for the muttaqin. Who are these muttaqin? Who are these believers? Number one, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, they are the ones who believe in the unseen. Okay, and that's really important, because that's really faith. What is faith? If we could see everything, yeah, but if we could see everything, or we could feel everything, or smell everything, then there's no belief involved. Okay, what would be, if you can see Jannah with your eyes, and Jahannam with your eyes, what's there to be tested and rewarded? It's there right in front of you. So the issue of the ghaib is really what differentiates a believer from a disbeliever. Okay, or in other words, not just a believer from a disbeliever, but also somebody differentiates between the believers and those whose minds don't comprehend, like for example the animals. Okay, what's the difference between human and animals? Is that we believe in the ghaib, the aql, yeah. Okay, so if you use your aql properly, you will understand that there is a book and there is guidance and there is ghaib. But the animals, they don't have that concept. So it differentiates us between the humans and the animals. And many of people today, you'll find, they don't believe in the ghaib yet. They say, if I don't see it, I don't believe it. If you can't prove it, I can't see it. The materialist world. Yeah? And there's no difference, with all due respect, between those who are materialistic, in the sense they only believe what they see, between them and the animals. There is no difference. Because the animals also believe in that which they see. What differentiates you and elevates you as a person is the belief in the ghaib, is the unseen. The belief in Allah, the belief in the angels, the belief in the qabr, the belief in the akhirah. That's what makes you a guided person. Okay. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Okay, وَيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ. Okay. So, if we continue, وَيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ, and they are the ones, Allah says, they establish the salah. Okay, what's interesting, Allah didn't say وَيَفْعَلُونَ الصَّلَاةِ, that they do the prayer, or يَأْتُونَ بِالصَّلَاةِ, that they bring forth the prayer, but He said إِقَامَةُ الصَّلَاةِ. Okay, now the إِقَامَةُ الصَّلَاةِ, what does that mean? It means, number one, that a person comes with all of the conditions of the prayer, that you come with the arkan, the compulsory elements of your prayer, you come with the arkan, you come with the wajibat, those things that you should do inside of your prayer, you come with its conditions, like the wudu, facing the qibla, all the other conditions, and you also come with the internal connection with Allah, that you are conscious that you're praying to. That's iqamat as-salah. Allah didn't just say bow down 4 times a day or whatever. He said iqamat as-salah. And that iqamat as-salah is the salah which you're rewarded for. Why? Because you've done all the things you need to do. You're conscious, you're connected with Allah, and this is known as iqamat as-salah. Okay? And if you do that, you will have ajr. And this is the salah that Allah is talking about when He says, Inna salata tanha anil fahshay wal munkar. That the salah is what prevents a person from fahsha, which is immorality, while munkar is doing wrong things. So many people, they say, oh, he prays but he does so much wrong, or she prays but she's still doing this and that. Why? Because she hasn't established the prayer, she's doing the prayer. There's a difference. Okay, you're doing it. But Allah says, iqamat as-salah. Okay, let it enter into your hearts. Right, let's continue to the next ayah. Where does that leave us? Iqamat as-salah. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And so the muttaqeen are those who believe in the unseen, those who establish the prayer. Now here comes the third quality for the believers. What is it? He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from that, رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, that we have given them rizq yunfiqun. They spend out of this rizq. Now this ayah is really amazing. Number one, because the min here, for the Arabic students, الدالة على تبعيض, meaning it means from some of the wealth. The word min has three different meanings. I'm not going to go into it now. One of them is tab'id, meaning from amongst them. So you can say, for example, I ate from the cake. It doesn't mean you ate all the cake, it means you ate
From the cake.
some of the cake. So same thing here, مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. That Allah has given you lots of rizq. But does He want you to give all of His rizq fi sabilillah? No, just like you had, just some of it. Just like you had a slice of cake, or some of you maybe two, then in that case, yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, from that, from your wealth, just give a little bit. Okay, just give some. This is the meaning of min, tab'id. So, مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ. And the other thing, also talking about the tawheed of Allah, when it says razaqna, who is the one who gives rizq, the food, the water, the health, everything? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Established once again, مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, that we gave them, yunfiqun. And they give from amongst that. The rizq is not just money, okay, even though that's the main thing that comes to people's mind, but rizq is many things. Is your health, is your time, and you can give any of that for the sake of Allah. So when you say give for the sake of Allah, it doesn't necessarily mean money, which is the most obvious thing, but it can mean your time as well. Okay, you could, just giving an example, in this classroom, if somebody brings food or brings something or helps set the tables up or puts a nice scent somewhere or the cameras, what this it could be مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Allah gave them time and they gave that time for the sake of Allah. Okay, so مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Okay. What's the next verse? Number 4. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ. Okay, وَالَّذِينَ, and they are the ones, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ, who believe, بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ, that which has been revealed unto you, إِلَيْكَ. Who is the ayah talking to? إِلَيْكَ. Revealed to who? The Prophet Muhammad. So they are the believers of two things. Number one, they're the believers in the prophethood of Muhammad, and the thing, or what was given to the Prophet was the Quran. So they are believers in both things. So the Quran and the Sunnah. There is no such thing as a person who says, I believe in the Quran but I don't believe in the Sunnah. You have those Quraniyun, or in Pakistan what do they call them? The Pervezis or something? Or
Ahl Quran.
Ahl Quran, I don't know. But you have people, even in this country, you have people who believe in the Quran but they don't believe in the Sunnah. Okay? They are not Muslim. You cannot be a Muslim if you don't have the Sunnah. It's impossible. I'll give you an example. Some people here are going Hajj. If you don't believe in the Sunnah, how are you going to do Hajj? It's not mentioned in the Quran. The Quran just tells you to do Hajj. But all the rules of Hajj are inside the Sunnah. So if you don't believe in the Sunnah, what are you going to do? So there's no Islam. So here, this ayah is very clear that our Islam is only completed with the Quran as well as the Sunnah. Allah says in another verse in the Quran, وَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. That He has revealed to us the Quran, or Al-Kitab, sorry. The Kitab is the Quran, wal-Hikmah, which is wisdom, and the wisdom is the Sunnah. Okay. So ayah number 5. أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. Then after all of these descriptions, Allah says, those أولئك, these people who fulfill all of these attributes that we said above, على هدى من ربهم, they are the ones who are upon guidance من ربهم, from their Lord. Oh, sorry. والذين يؤمنون. Oh, sorry. Okay. وما أنزل من قبلك. Thank you. جزاك الله خير. The min qablik is referring to that which came before, and is talking about the books that were revealed before. So clearly from the books that we know that were revealed before, what was the book revealed to Isa alayhi salam? Injil. What was revealed to Musa alayhi salam? And that was revealed to Dawud alayhi salam? Zabur. These are what we know. Okay. Now, just a side point again. When we say that it's the Injil is not the Bible of today. Please remember that. Okay. The same James Version or the International. All these are not the Injil. Okay. So many people they say that, and then when Christians talk to them, they confuse them. They say, look, your book tells you to believe in the Injil. Here's the Injil. Believe in it. Then the Muslim gets stuck. That's not the Injil. That's your addition, variation, adaptation to the original Injil, which was somewhere. We don't know where it is. The only book that is unchanged is the Quran. Okay, every other book has been changed. All right. من قبلكم وبالآخرة هم يوقنون. And these people, they have يوقنون. They have certainty. They have yuqinun is certainty, and they have al-yaqeen, and al-yaqeen is al-ilm at-tam. So when it comes to knowledge, we said the highest level of knowledge is ilm, which means certainty, you've got no doubt. Underneath ilm, certainty, we say is dhan. Dhan is speculation, you're like maybe, okay? But most likely this is correct. Underneath that you have shak. Shak is 50-50, okay? None of those are accepted except for yaqeen. You cannot be a believer if you have dhan, speculation. You're not a believer. You cannot be a believer if you have shak. Maybe he was a prophet, maybe he wasn't a prophet. Maybe there's Jannah, maybe there's not. No. If that is, you're not Muslim. Okay? You're only a believer if you have yaqeen in these things. Okay? That have certainty. Just like the way you can see me in front of you now is the same level of certainty you should have of the hellfire and paradise. That is there, it exists, and that we will go to one of those two. May Allah make us from the people of Jannah. وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And they have certainty in that which is going to come. Now here's a question for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Okay, the believers, the muqtaqi, are those who believe in the ghaib. And then in this verse Allah says وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. Now the akhirah, is that from amongst the ghaibiyat? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So Allah said they believe in the unseen, and then a few words later Allah makes mentions of the akhirah, which is also from the unseen. So why did Allah not just say ghaibiyat again, but this time He said akhirah? No, sorry? Close. This is very common in the Quran. You find Allah makes mention of something in general, and then from amongst the generality He picks something specific and makes mention of something specific further down in the verse. Okay? In Arabic say ذكر الخاص بعد ذكر العام. Okay? That mentioning something specific after mentioning something general. Why would you do that? So for example, if I said all the students in this room were absolutely amazing, okay, but then I said Ali was really fascinating. He was, a superb student.
Is that to give an example?
Give more importance.
Give more importance, yeah, highlight the bigger issue. That everybody passed, but Ali was really high. His grades were more than the others. So here we're talking about with the ghaibiyah, the unseen. But the biggest issue when it comes to the unseen is what? The akhirah. Is there life after death?
If you don't believe in that,
then you don't believe nothing. Yeah. So the biggest question is there life after death? Is the akhirah? Today in society there's nothing. They say you're going to die and that's the end of story. So no, that's not the case. There is the akhirah. That's the biggest thing. Once you got the akhirah, the ghaibiyat will naturally follow. So Allah shows the most important element and draws our attention to the akhirah. Okay. The language is truly amazing. Let's continue. أولئك على هدى من ربهم. Okay. These are the people. أولئك. These are the people are upon guidance from their Lord. وأولئك هم المفلحون. And these people are the ones who will be successful. Now something beautiful from the language perspective. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran He mentions huda, guidance, He uses the prepositional word ala. Okay, what does ala mean? On. Okay, so for example, my phone, yeah, al-hatif ala tawla, it's upon, it's above. But whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses dalal, He uses fi dalal. Okay, in dalal, which implies, for example, if I say my phone is in the table, will it be on top or inside or below?
Inside.
It will be inside, right? Would it be below the preposition ala or the same level? Below. So here, just by the preposition, subhanAllah, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ, that these are the people who are raised up, just by the ala, they are raised up with this guidance, hudan. The Lord takes them up just because of the word ala, the preposition ala. And then fi dalal, that if a person is in misguidance, he is lower. Yeah, just by the fi, that he's gone down. The dalal will take you down and the huda will take you up, simply because of ala and fi. Okay? So أولئك على هدى من ربهم, these people are upon guidance from the Lord, وأولئك هم المفلحون, and these are the people who are truly successful. Now, how many verses, if we just pause here for a second, we were talking here about what category of people? Those who are guided, right? How many verses were there? Roughly, what verse number are we on? 5, okay. First is Alif Lam Mim. So let's say 4 verses talking about the believers. So what was their characteristic? The believers are those who, number 1, bil ghaib, they believe in unseen. Number 2, they establish the prayer. Number 3, they give zakat, they give out of their wealth. Number 4, they believe in Quran and Sunnah. 5, good, they believe in what came before them. Was there anything else? That's it, right? Okay. They are the ones who are upon guidance. So 4 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started with talking about the believers. Now the theme changes. We're going to talk about who? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieved. So now we're going to talk about the kuffar, those who disbelieved. What does Allah say? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. As for those who have disbelieved, إن الذين كفروا, as for those who disbelieve, سواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. Okay, as for those who have disbelieved, سواء, whether أنذرتهم, whether you warn them, أم لم تنذرهم, or you don't warn them, لا يؤمنون, they're never going to believe. Okay. Now this is not just talking about any normal person, but we're talking about like these people, the Jews and the Christians who are learned, who understood. No matter how much you tell them, and whether you warn them or don't warn them, they not believe. So that's the first trait of these people, that they refuse to accept the guidance. Andartahum means to warn. Okay? So whether you warn them or not. In another verse in the Quran, Allah tells us, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ, that upon you, O Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is the balagh, to convey the message. You're just there to convey. وَعَلَيْنَا, and it's Allah's job, it's our job, al-hisab. We are the ones who will do the accounting. Okay? So our job is just to convey. Then ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. The khatam, Allah says that a seal has been placed. Some say a khatam can be a stamp as well. Okay, the way you put a stamp on something. In the olden days, when they used to close an envelope, they used to have a stamp to close it, so it's been sealed. Okay, or the Prophet ﷺ, he is the Khatam al-Anbiya, he is the last prophet. There's nothing going to come after. So the word Khatam means to finish something, to end something, to close something. So Khatam Allahu, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will close ala qulubihim, their hearts. Their hearts will be closed. So no matter what comes after, the hearts will not receive any kind of guidance. And that's why it's so important that we look after our hearts. We do not want our hearts to be closed. That's why we constantly say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Because the qalb changes. Yeah? It desires things. It wants things. And sometimes the desires can overpower us. And that can be our misguidance. So we always ask Allah to keep our hearts soft and in obedience to Allah Almighty. Allah says, Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim, that the hearts will be sealed, wa ala sam'ihim, and the ears will also be closed. So you can recite to them wherever you want, it's not going to have any effect. And we can see that with people. They praying and verses are being recited, there's no impact. Nothing's happening. Nothing is moved in their life. They will pray, and straight after the prayer they will go back to what they're doing. Whatever evil, whatever wrong they're doing, it has no impact, because the eyes, the hearts and the ears are closed. Okay. Furthermore, وَعَلَىٰ أَبْصَارِهِمْ غِشَاوَةٌ. Now, something different here. Allah says there's a khatam put on their hearts and upon their ears, but their eyes وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. And what's a ghishawa? A parda or a cloth or a barrier. So there's a cloth or a barrier that's been put in front of the eyes, so they can't see. So even if guidance comes to them, something so obvious, and subhanAllah, like I remember I was at university and some of the professors at university, we get into debates about God and the existence of God, and you know, they're professors, they're PhDs, and they've been teaching for decades. And you know, I would, when we talk about God and we look at creation and we look at life and we look at birth and death, all these things, it's common sense to know that there is a creator. Behind this, there is some divine creation. There is a power behind all of it. Whether you call it God or a force or whatever you call it, but there is a power behind all of this. But somebody is so educated, you know, will come and say, no, it just happened. You know, how can it just happen? Like it was just coincidence that everything is so perfect. How can it be such a coincidence? I'm sorry, their eyes are closed, their hearts are dead. Or I remember once seeing a documentary, and in this documentary they were talking about the guy was a Hindu and he was a surgeon. He was a heart surgeon. To become a surgeon is not an easy job. So much study. The guy has obviously very intelligent. But they would show the life of this surgeon, and in his lunch breaks, whenever he would time, he would go to his locker. They would open his locker, and he's got a statue inside, and decorated. So he would go there and he would start bowing to the statue. SubhanAllah. Like Allah gave you so much intelligence, but your ears, your eyes, and your hearts are closed. Right? You can't see nothing. You're still open, and you worship a stone. So it can happen to the best of us. So what does Allah say? ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. And these people, these kuffar, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And they will have the worst of punishment. Okay. Now, again here the theme changes. So who are we talking about in these two verses? Kuffar, the disbelievers. And how many ayat we said were on them? Two. So 4 ayat on the believers, 2 ayat on the disbelievers, and now look what happens. The third group of people. What is the third group? وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَمَا يَخْدَعُونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ فِي قُلُوبِهِم مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْذِبُونَ. So here Allah is saying there is a group of people, they say we believe, وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ, but they don't believe. What's the name of this group of people? Munafiqun. So this is the first dhikr or remembrance or utterance of the munafiqun. And subhanallah, how many ayats do you think continue on talking about the munafiqun? Huh? Yeah, in this particular verse. Yeah, it's like 14 verses or 13 verses that go on talking about the munafiqun. 4 on the believers, 2 on the disbelievers, and then 13 or 14 talking about the munafiqin. Shows us very clearly that our biggest problem, our biggest threat as Muslims is not the kuffar. Their actions are obvious. We know what they're doing. We know how they're living. It's obvious. Our biggest problem is the munafiqin. Those who have Muslim names and they live amongst us, but the reality is they have no interest in Islam and they want to bring about the downfall of Islam. They're the biggest threat. And that's why even during the time of Medina, they were the biggest threat to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet ﷺ and the companions description of who these people are and what are their characteristics. Okay, so let's have a look at a few of them and then inshallah we will stop. Okay, we'll take some questions. Okay, the first thing when it comes to an-nifaq, hypocrisy, there are 2 types of hypocrisy. There is an-nifaq al-i'tiqadi, meaning hypocrisy in faith. Hypocrisy in faith, meaning you claim you believe something but you actually believe something else. Anybody who has nifaq al-i'tiqadi is not a Muslim, okay, because he doesn't believe. But then there is nifaq al-amali, actions, that you know you shouldn't be doing something but you do it anyway. This kind of hypocrisy in your actions, it doesn't take you outside of Islam. You're still a Muslim, but your actions are not very good. They're contradictory to Islam. So for example, you should be praying, you should be fasting, you shouldn't be cheating, you shouldn't be lying. Okay, these kind of things. So this is al-amali. This is, you're still a Muslim, you accept it, but the i'tiqadi, the one who believes something completely different compared to what he is, this is someone takes somebody outside the fold of Islam. Okay. Okay, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ when you call آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وهم مؤمنين. Okay, so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them فإنهم يقولون بألسنتهم, that they say with their tongues ما ليس في قلوبهم, that which is not inside their hearts. وما هم بمؤمنين, and Allah tells us clearly that these people, they are not believers, because al-iman al-haqiqi, the real belief, necessitates, but it comes from the heart and it shows action. Okay, so they had no action, or the action was devoid. يخادعون الله. What does يخادعون mean? Al-khuda, to deceive. Yeah, these hypocrites, they're so foolish that they think they can deceive Allah. They think they can be hypocrites and get away with it, and they think they're so clever that they can trick Allah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells يخادعون Allah, that they think they can trick Allah. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and they trick those who believe. وَمَا يَخْدَعُونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُم, and Allah says the only people who they are tricking is themselves. They're only fooling themselves. إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُم وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ, and they do not feel or they don't realize what it is that they're doing. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. And Allah says in their hearts is a disease. And what's this disease? Number one is the disease of shak, of doubt. Number two is the disease of shubuhat, of desires. And number three, it's the essence of nifaq. Shak, because they don't know if it's true or false. And shubuhat, they doubts in whether what the Prophet says is true or not. And also you can add a third one here, is the shahawat, the desires. Yeah, that's, if I didn't say that. They desire for wealth, they desire for power, they desire for any other things. This is what causes the hypocrisy. Okay? Okay. During the time in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, he knew who the munafiqun were, but no one else did. And the Prophet ﷺ, he only told one companion the name of the munafiqun. Anyone know the name of this companion? Yeah, Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman. Okay, he's the only one who knew. Hudhayfa, that's a nice name, Hudhayfa. He was one who knew the names of the 14 different hypocrites. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ told him not to tell anyone. It was to be kept amongst himself. Because what the Prophet ﷺ feared was that if people start to know who the hypocrites are, what are they going to do to them? They're going to punish them, or they're going to kill them. Yeah, because they're causing damage to the Muslims. And if they kill them, then the Prophet ﷺ feared that the disbelievers, or those outside of Medina,